Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today's guest is Jonathan Ferrari. He is the co-founder and CEO of Goodfood Market, previously known as Culinist, the largest independent online grocery and home meal provider in Canada. They offer meal kits, breakfast meals, grocery items, snacks, and ready-to-eat products. And just to be clear, this episode of the podcast is not sponsored by Goodfood. But hey, Goodfood, if you're listening, surely we can work something out. Anyway, enjoy the show, everybody. Welcome to the show, man. Hey, thanks a lot for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, how's your summer so far? I know you've been very busy with the company.
It's been great. We had a pretty crazy time in the spring running Good Food through COVID. So the summer has been an opportunity for myself and my team to take a bit of a breather. So I was in Quebec City last week with my wife. And we were in Prince Edward County for the weekend after that. So it was great to just get out of our homes for a little bit and get a little bit of fresh air.
Yeah, that all sounds great. You know, a much needed break after stressful times. So for those who aren't familiar with the company that you run, could you briefly explain what Good Food does?
Sure. So Good Food's mission today is to be the number one online grocery brand in Canada. We started our business off focused exclusively on meal kits. So myself and two co-founders started the business in 2014. And the objective was to simplify dinner, primarily for ourselves as consumers, but for Canadians coast to coast. And create these meal solutions where we deliver all of the ingredients required to prepare dinners at home. And since then, we've grown to include a much broader product selection of prepared meals and a new line of grocery products.
Yeah, I have to say, I got a subscription a few months ago during quarantine when I heard about it, and I was just really blown away by the simplicity of everything. From, choosing the menu to preparation, it's just so well thought through. So I'd just like to congratulate you on that. And
I appreciate that. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into that.
Yeah, and what's really impressive was that nothing really needs to end up in the trash. Everything from the packaging, the box, the plastic bags, eventually they're recyclable, right?
Yeah, what's interesting is you might be surprised to hear that 75% of bagged lettuces in grocery stores never actually get consumed. So food waste in the supply chain between the farm and the grocery store and the food that we consume at home, the food waste is gigantic. And so thinking about doing your grocery shopping and meal planning around specific recipes that you're going to be eating during the week really helps eliminate a significant amount of waste.
Yeah, so the problem with food waste and grocery shopping is that for most consumers, the middle step between getting your ingredients from the store and what you're actually going to end up consuming, very few people will actually spend the time researching and measuring the exact quantities that they need. And that's essentially where the meal kit companies come in, right? Now, during these last few months, people are starting to shop online more and more because of the pandemic, and that was the case for me personally as well. I'm guessing this is working out fairly well for an online grocery store like Goodfood, especially during a major expansion phase of the company.
We just released our third quarter results a few weeks ago. And so our sales were up a little bit over 70% year over year. And there's probably about 30% of that was COVID related. And we also announced our very first quarter of profitability. So with that larger volume of sales, we were able to amortize some fixed costs over that much larger revenue base. And that led to the team's very first quarter of profitability. So we're quite happy with that.
That's amazing. Congratulations. And with this sudden increase in demand due to the pandemic, I expect there to be some issues, at least somewhere in the supply chain.
Oh my goodness. So many issues. We had, at the peak of the crisis, so at the beginning of April, close to 85% of our fulfillment center employees were scared to come into work and to leave their homes and take public transport. So we actually ended up hiring about 1,000 people in a 3-week period to kind of meet the needs of Canadians coast to coast and to run our fulfillment centers.
How'd you do that? How'd you hire so many people within,
It was a pretty crazy rush. So we do have an awesome talent acquisition team internally. Mm-hmm. So we have about 20 recruiters that are working full time on recruiting for good food, just on a general basis, because the business has been growing pretty quickly over the past few years. So we do have a good team of internal talent acquisition specialists. Mm-hmm. And they focus primarily on recruiting from industries that were shut down during the pandemic's crisis, right? So restaurants, people that were working in the tourism industry. And so it felt good to be able to offer them some work and to be part of the solution. And if you'll remember, there was, during 1 week of the pandemic, 1 million Canadians lost their jobs, right? We were able to go out there and offer them jobs. Over time, we've been able to actually maintain those positions, right? So some of the temporary positions have been turned into permanent ones.
Yeah, that is very strategic, offering a job to somebody who just lost their job in a similar industry. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing I want to know right away is that, me personally, I've ran a couple of projects alongside school and stuff. And then during the pandemic, I found myself very stressed at times. And I want to know, with you and a company of that size, what was the mental and physical toll on your body? How stressful were you? How did you deal with that?
As the CEO, it's a constant, an area of constant focus. So, I need to be the person that is, living 2 or 3 years out into the future and thinking about what's the world going to look like, right? So what are our customers going to be wanting? What are competitors going to be offering? What kind of new competition can arrive? What kind of issues are we going to have in our supply chain and our operations when the business is 5 times the size?
Yeah.
So it's and then of course, there's things like COVID that get thrown in the mix that you have never even anticipated. So I spend a lot of time cultivating, physical fitness. I try to work out every single day. I meditate to kind of take some time and focus on mental health as well.
I've been trying to get into that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just physically and mentally very demanding. At the same time, to me, there's nothing more rewarding than that, right? To be able to build a business, to be able to build the future of groceries in Canada, to build an awesome team I like working with every day.
Absolutely.
These are all things that, I thrive on being in that environment.
Do you consider yourself very organized, or do you have like a strict daily routine that you stick to no matter what?
I would say I have a solid, general pattern or schedule.
Yeah.
I tend to, work out either in the morning or the evenings. I try to avoid taking meetings before noon. So my thinking is I want to get my thinking done before noon. I want to have undisturbed amounts of time to be able to, really reflect on what's important. And then I try and get all my meetings done in the afternoon. And then the evenings tend to be time for, particularly during COVID, when, we're not really going out much or socializing too much. It's time for reading and, hanging out at home with my family.
Would you say there's like a big difference between, the mental toll or the physical toll or the stress that you're having in the period that Good Food is in right now compared to the period where it was more like a young startup back 3, 4, 5 years ago? What would you say are the major differences?
I think the biggest difference is the resources that we have today. So 6 years ago, I was basically building the menu items and leading product development. I was answering customer service calls and emails. I was thinking about the marketing strategy.
Right.
And, we were kind of three founders that had to do everything in the business from start to end. Today, I have an awesome team. We're 3,500 employees across the country.
Wow.
So, I'm able to use those resources in a more strategic way.
Right.
And, I would say my stress level in not being worried about meeting the next payroll or thinking about running out of cash in the bank, that level of stress is really gone today. And so, I'm able to, think much more long term. So whereas in the past, in the first few years, it was kind of day to day thinking or week to week thinking. Now I'm focused on planning out, the next 10 years.
Right. Financial security really does reduce a lot of the day-to-day stress. I totally agree. So let's bring it back to the beginning. So you graduated from high school at Collège Jean de Brébeuf in 2004, Marianopolis College 2 years later, and then you got a Bachelor of Commerce and Entrepreneurship from McGill University. So we're just going to briefly go over all of these periods of your life. So starting with Collège Brébeuf, high school. So how was high school for you? How did it impact your life later on?
So I think the two most important things that I got from Brébeuf, one was the people that I met there. So many of my best friends, one of my co-founders was at Brébeuf with me as well. So many of my best friends still today, I met at Brébeuf.
Did you?
And the second thing was work ethic. Like I think being in a very rigorous class setting, having exams every Friday. I don't know if that's still the case today.
No, that's still the case. Yeah.
So I think it was just this rigorous work ethic and getting a sense that if I put my mind to it, it would really pay off. That was kind of those are the two big things that I took away from high school.
Just out of my personal curiosity, because I'm also a graduate from Collège Brébeuf, do you remember any names that impacted you a lot? Madame Yamonikou, Monsieur Haddad, Monsieur Bibi, anybody that really left a mark on you?
Madame Yamonikou, yes. She was one of my teachers. I don't remember the other names that you mentioned, so perhaps they weren't there at the time.
Yeah, Madame Yamonikou really made an impact on a lot of us here. Actually, she left this year due to some internal affairs or whatever, I'm not too sure of. And do you recall Carnaval?
Yes, absolutely.
During my first year at Brébeuf, which was 2015, so pretty recent, I remember Carnaval was absolutely fucking wild. But every year after that, the activities got more and more restricted because of safety reasons. I don't know, how was it for you? Yeah,
we had to tighten the rope over time, right?
they used to build an indoor pool for Carnaval back in like the 80s or something. It's a shame we don't do that anymore.
And so what was it like in your first couple of years?
Maybe because I was
a lot of fun?
Physically smaller, physically immature, something. So maybe everything felt more dangerous back then. Anyway, so when you transitioned from Collège Brébeuf, which was a French high school, to Marianopolis College, which was an English cégep, did language kind of play a factor here, or what was the main reason behind going from a French school to an English school?
I had an early sense that I was going to be interested in going into the business world. Yeah. And because of that, my parents encouraged me to get a bit more comfortable in English, and particularly if I wanted to play a role, either in Canada outside of Quebec or a role on the global scene, I'd have to get comfortable in English. And so it made sense to, instead of going straight into university in English, to go to an English CEGEP. That was the thinking there.
Were there any difficulties when you transitioned in terms of language, or anything you didn't really expect?
I think it was tough at first, but once you get a hang of it, I was able to adapt fairly quickly. Yeah. And I think it's it's an experience that I would recommend for everyone. Like to study partly in French and partly in English throughout your studies.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that just creates such a well-rounded communicator.
Absolutely.
That I would highly recommend that.
So I guess that must have challenged you a lot, in getting outside of your comfort zone.
Definitely. Like, I think one of the key themes in my life has always been that desire to get outside of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I've always had this notion that everything good in life is slightly outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And if you feel a little bit uncomfortable or you're squirming, it's probably because you're close to doing something cool or learning something new.
Yeah.
And so I really try and put myself in those kinds of situations.
So after Marinopolis, you went on to McGill and got a Bachelor of Commerce. Now, when you look back in retrospect, which period really influenced you the most in choosing what you want to do later on in life?
So my time at McGill was really my first exposure in depth to business topics. So entrepreneurship, finance, accounting. And I realized that I loved it, and it came very naturally and easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was great. I also took the opportunity while I was at McGill to work during all of our summer breaks.
Okay.
So I really tried to get as many internships as I could. My first internship was unpaid, and it was focused on accounting. And then I was able in subsequent years to get paid internships. Mm-hmm. But the idea was to combine some real life experience with great education. And I think that combination prepared me well for my first couple of years outside of school after that.
So let's say right now, what would you tell your younger self, when you were around 18, 19, 20, this young stage where we're really not sure where to go exactly?
I think the best piece of advice that I would give myself is try not to rush it. Like, I think you need to leave yourself some time to explore and to make some mistakes. And I wanted to get a little bit of experience in accounting, a little bit in finance. I wanted to start my own business, but I always felt like I was in this tremendous rush to get to where I was going more quickly. And when you're rushing too much, the process is not as enjoyable as it could be.
Oh, yeah.
But also, we tend to underestimate what we can do, right, in a much longer period. So if you think about what you can do in 10 years, you'll probably underestimate that. But if you try and think about what you want to do in a single summer, you'll probably overestimate that. And it just brings a lot of pressure and doesn't necessarily lead to the greatest results.
I see, like, the culture nowadays, you see everyone on social media, youngest billionaire at 20 years old, entrepreneurs are getting younger and younger. All the tech startups are started by 20-year-olds. And so there's really, I think for me too, I feel this culture of getting out there as soon as you can and achieving biggest things before you get old. Totally. Really, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of the younger kids.
I remember that being prevalent within my friends. I've always been very focused with myself. So it's not that I'm not a competitor and looking at what others are doing, but I've just always been very inwardly focused in a vibe. So, I want to, be more fit. I want to, exceed the grades that I would have got in a certain class or something like that. Or, I want to accomplish more in the business, but I haven't really been comparing it to others. And I think, on the concept of rushing through, I think there are a lot of success stories, right, where a young entrepreneur, hits it big, and that's awesome, right? And I think we need to celebrate that and and use those stories as inspiration.
Absolutely.
But we should also be talking about the other stories, right? Like the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken opened the first Kentucky Fried Chicken outlet when he was 65.
50, 65, wow.
Something, I mean, maybe
Something
it wasn't
like
65,
that, yeah.
but I thought it was over 60. So, there's many examples, right, of people reinventing themselves later in life. And I think, I've always felt that people are very fast to put labels on other people. So I went from being, a young graduate, right? So, okay, you don't know too much about the real world because you're a young graduate. Then I became the finance guy, right? So I was working at RBC Capital Markets and I was branded as the finance guy. And then I decided that I wanted to go into food. And now I'm the food guy, right? So I think we need to leave ourselves room to reinvent ourselves. And it's pretty amazing what we can learn and not feel like we're pigeonholed into something specific.
So, you said you were doing a lot of investment banking, venture capital after university, right? So what made you exactly transition from finance to the food industry?
So the food industry was a personal passion. My grandfather was a chef, and all of my favorite childhood memories have always happened in the kitchen or around the dining room table. And food is something that I've been incredibly passionate about for my whole life. Yeah, I've taken Gordon Ramsay cookbooks and cooked them cover to cover. And so it's something I love. While I was still studying at McGill, I did an internship at the Business Development Bank of Canada in their venture capital group. And I wanted to get really close to startups when I was there and get to know the world of startups and venture capital. And what I realized is there's only so close that you can get connected if you're on the investor side. So being part of the VC fund, you never really get, in depth enough to my liking anyways, in terms of how to operate a business, how to grow a team, and how to build something. So the connection from investment banking into starting my own business was really informed from my passion of food and the idea that I didn't just want to be an investor. I wanted to be a participant
get in on the field,
that was going to build something. Exactly. And so that's how we ended up starting Goodfood.
A bit unrelated. Do you have any go-to restaurants in Montreal? Because, Montreal is really well known as une ville gourmande, a city that just loves food. Do you have any place that you absolutely recommend?
Oh my goodness, a ton of them. I love
so many. Huh?
I love Tuck Shop in St. Henry. That's a place that I've been going to for years, and
haven't heard of that one.
The menu is awesome, and the food is fantastic. And where else do we like to go? We like to go. Have you been to Tapeo in?
Where's that? No.
Ries?
No.
So Tapeo is awesome too. They do small Spanish style tapas place. So that's really amazing. But there's so many great options in Montreal. What's your favorite restaurant?
I have two right now that I really just absolutely love. One is Damas in Outremont. Have you heard of that? It's a Syrian place.
A few times whenever I could get a reservation. It's fantastic. It's amazing.
Another one was Auto Bistro in Plateau, I think. I absolutely recommend it. It's a very hip, young Japanese place.
Haven't heard of that one.
But anyway, we're going to move on because we have a lot more questions to cover. So, in the early days, what are some of the ideas, books, or, resources that really helped you in the early days of Goodfood?
So in terms of books, one of the first one that I picked up when I was thinking of launching a startup is called The Lean Startup. Great overview in terms of how to get to market quickly and how to build a business that's informed from real life experience with customers. And then the other one the other book that I refer to almost everyone when they join Good Food is called Delivering Happiness, which was written by the founder of Zappos.
Okay.
And the whole culture around spectacular customer service and putting the customer at the center of the business. That's really something that we built into the philosophy of Good Food.
I absolutely see it from every bit of the experience, from receiving the shipment, choosing the menu, unpacking. I definitely see how the ideas from this book reflects in the actual business. And what do you wish you had known when you were starting out in general?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that I think about in hindsight now is I was actually I was fighting the idea of raising capital, to be honest.
Okay.
So I think we wanted to maintain, as large a percentage of the business as we could,
right,
for the founders, and we wanted to avoid being diluted, and so we kind of pushed off and delayed bringing on investors as much as we could, and when we did take on outside investors, we tried to raise the least amount of money possible. And that was, it was good in the sense that we were trying to stretch our means as much as possible. But the flip side is, I think we made it much harder on ourselves than we had to. So it took about 4 years to get to that conclusion that capital could actually be a competitive advantage for our business, and if we had access to money at a lower cost than our competitors, we would be able to invest more in product development and people on our team and the infrastructure and the technology and all of that stuff. So it was at that point that we made the decision to take Good Food public and have the shares start trading on the TSX. And from that moment on, I think that was where we really understood the power of access to capital and liquidity. And since then, we've made sure to really be in a great liquidity position. We have over $100 million of cash in our bank account today. And the thinking is we want to be able to be very opportunistic to invest in whatever we need to invest in for the future of Good Food. And if there's anything that happens, like a pandemic or a crisis or unexpected moments, we can weather that storm with enough liquidity on the balance sheet. And that was something that Bill Gates talked a lot about when he was running Microsoft. He always wanted to have 12 months of operating cash flow on his balance sheet. And I think that's been really key to our success.
Would you say your background in finance really contributed a lot in just planning for the future, planning ahead, organizing the interior budget and all that?
It did, absolutely. So understanding how to run the budget, the economics of the business, understanding how the capital markets work. I don't think we would have been able to take the business public had I not had experience in the investment banking side before. So it's been this fun combination of entrepreneurship and finance background that has got us here today.
So last time you said you're running a company with 3,500 employees all over Canada. And, on top of that, you have a massive supply chain with a grocery store, I certainly don't expect it to be walk in the park, but what are some of the main challenges for you personally and for Good Food as a whole, not limited to the pandemic, but just as a whole with this business model that you have? The
biggest challenge it has been in growing to 3,500 employees in 6 years. It's been to find the right talent, convince them that they can be successful, right, at Good Food, and that they can really make a difference. And then figuring out how to maintain a common culture among everybody, which was easy to do when we were all in the same building in Montreal, but very difficult to do. Now we have 6 fulfillment centers in every major city across the country. So really difficult to have that, common culture, common values, and then ensuring that everyone, that the communication is clear. Like everyone knows what's our North Star, where are we going, why are we doing this? We're launching now with our grocery offering 40 new products every single week. Wow. So what are the new products? How did we come to, why are they on our website? How did we come to develop them? So those are really the most difficult aspects of the business. Yeah. And in the future, I think an industry that is growing as quickly as ours, like, there's $120 billion of grocery sales that are done in Canada every single year. And there's a very small percentage of that that's done online today, even post-pandemic. So the industry has been growing quickly, but will continue to accelerate in growth over the coming years. And so an industry like that will tend to attract more competition. And so absolutely, we need to be thinking about it today. How do we position ourselves a few years from now to really to have a unique place in the hearts of our customers?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And I also have another question, which is a lot of people like to ask because it just reveals so much about, the average person who will normally read it on a Wikipedia page. So what are some things that you failed at in your career in general? And how did these failures really shape you into who you are?
That's a great question. So it's a great question because one of the number one things that I look at when hiring someone is, has this person demonstrated resilience in their life in some way, right? Because it's easy to be happy and motivated and confident when everything is going your way, but it's much harder when it's not going your way.
I completely agree.
And one of the, I have many examples, but one example I would give is between working at RBC and actually starting Good Food. Yeah. There was a 1-year period where my intent was I had raised $500,000 from investors. And the intent was to start a fund. It's called a search fund, in order to buy a business that I would then operate and run with my business partner. And during that 1-year period, we met with over 100 business owners, and ultimately we were not able to close a transaction. So either the business ended up not being interesting enough in terms of future potential for us, or the business was great and the business owner had no interest in selling it to us. And then combined with that, we were about 25 years old at the time. Yeah. Very limited experience. So it was hard for business owners to take us seriously. And so, put all of that together, and I found myself at a moment saying, I went from Brébeuf, Marianopolis, McGill, top of my class. I got the best possible job that I thought I could get after graduating, and started working in investment banking at RBC, the number one investment bank in Canada. And I left all of that. I raised money from investors that were entrusting me to find a great business. And 1 year later, I had nothing to show for it. And I was in a situation where I thought the best thing to do was to give the money back to the investors and pivot to a new path. And so it was a difficult moment. And I could have easily at that point said, you know what, this whole working for myself kind of thing is not going to work. I'm going to go back to a safer career path. But I pushed through from there, and I'm quite happy that we did at that point.
Now, from these experiences and your role as CEO, what do you think are your most important qualities that put you in the leadership position that you're in at Good Food?
I think the first thing is ability to envision the future. So I think that's a really important piece. So to think about what the future is going to look like and then build a strategy around that. I think the second thing is the ability to attract great people to join our mission. So, it was fine in the early days for me to be doing everything myself, but I quickly realized that that wasn't going to get me to anywhere meaningful. So to attract great people, I think was important. And then the last piece is to be able to, we talked a little bit about the mindset or the mentality, right? To be able to manage stress, but to also play the inner game, right? Not just the outer game, but the inner game. I would say that's kind of the third piece that I bring to the table.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You have to know how to deal with yourself before you manage other people.
Exactly.
Now, Jonathan, I know you got a hard stop, so we're just going to end it right here.
It was awesome chatting with you, and when you reached out and mentioned that there was interest to share my story in the Tapeo magazine, I was really happy to do so. Some of my fondest moments and memories are from Brébeuf. And if I can serve as an inspiration or of what to do or what not to do either way, it's a real pleasure to participate in that. So thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gents, that was Jonathan Ferrari, co-founder and CEO of Goodfood Market, Canada's largest online grocery and meal kit company based out of Montreal. And you can find out more about his company at makegoodfood.ca. And if you're a stranger to this whole new way of making dinner, I strongly recommend you to give it a try and see for yourself. Anyway, that's it for today. Tell your friends about us. We have lots of exciting guests coming on soon, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.